Hi everyone, I'm Staci, a compulsive eater from Los Angeles, California. Hi. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day off the gray sheet. I write those meals down. I commit them to my sponsor. I don't eat in between my meals no matter what. I eat what I commit no matter what. And abstinence is most important in my life today without exception. My abstinence date is July 1st, 2017, which God willing, January 1st will be 3.5 years of back-to-back gray sheet abstinence. And one thing I can say is during that time, I have been 100% honest with my food. And I don't know I can say that about anything else, but insofar as my food is concerned, 100% honest. By way of background, I'll just give you just in generally first, I'm 5'1" on a good day. And I've gone up and down 30 pounds since college up and down 30 pounds until I started food fellowship, which was another food fellowship that was in 2008. And I came straight here in 2017 from that food fellowship. So I grew up in a loving home in Southern California. I always felt different because I have life-threatening food allergies. I have anaphylaxis to many foods, which also limits the foods that I can eat on the gray sheet and just is what it is. So when I was young, I would have to bring my own food with me to parties or to friends' houses, and I always felt different. I couldn't eat the birthday thing that other people ate. I had to have my own little birthday thing. And as soon as I was old enough to do so, I would read ingredients in all the foods that I ate to ensure that I could eat them. And so I felt different, and I felt very food focused because food could kill me. I'm also a diabetic, but I didn't know that until I was in my 30s. And so it was something that I had from very early on. And so I would get these insatiable cravings for the foods we don't eat, because when I would eat even the smallest amount, the sugars would be floating around in my body and not have anywhere to go because my body wasn't processing those sugars appropriately. And so I always had insatiable cravings since I was at least in middle school. I can remember that very vividly. I also grew up in a home with a mom who was a compulsive eater. She's gone up and down 50 pounds since I can remember. She's 4'11¾". And weight and body image was always very important to her. My dad got me. He understood. He could see by the look in my eyes when I had a craving, I needed to have that fulfilled. And before I could even drive, he would go to the supermarket and get me what we're supposed to bake in the oven. He'd cut it in half. I'd have the roll of it, half of a roll raw with a diet soda, always a diet soda. And that's what I would do. And then when I was in high school, I found a yearbook. There was something in my yearbook that I found about 5 or 10 years ago that said, I can't remember when Staci wasn't eating or talking about food. And I was a very normal weight because I danced for about 5 hours a day. Here's a picture of me at my senior prom, and ignore the horrible mermaid dress, but it was the 80s and the big hair. But can you see that okay? Okay, so I was a very normal weight. I was probably about 105. I felt huge. I felt very big. And because I'd hear things like everyone joked because I ate so much in such huge volumes, but I was thin. So I think people didn't think that I would care that they were always commenting on what I was eating because I was thin, but that wasn't the case. On the outside in high school, I appeared as someone who fit in. I was a cheerleader. I had a group of friends. On the inside, I felt very different, hugely like body obsessed and food obsessed. And when when people saw what I ate, this is what they saw. So I would go off campus for lunch. This is every day. I would go to a fast food place and I would get 2 main things, 3 side things, 2 or 3 desserts, a drink we don't drink, and a diet soda. And that was always. And my first car I totaled out of 3 for being in the food. I reached down, there were 5 of us in my car. I was in high school, and I reached down to get something we don't eat, and I hit a car that hit a car, and people were injured, and it was horrible. Sorry, my dog's barking in the background. It wasn't until college that I thought I would have this freedom because I wouldn't have my mom there. I went to school 3,000 miles away. I went to the East Coast for school, and I was imprisoned because I was just so obsessed with the constant food thoughts. And I would make little deals with my friends, like, I'll go to this party with you, but then you come with me to 7-Eleven afterward, and we'll sit on the floor, and I'll bring my own spoon, and I'll eat the cold stuff. And people didn't relate, but they would do it. In college is when I started gaining weight because I wasn't active anymore. And that was my first 30-pound gain. And I did many things over the years to control and enjoy. That was that will never happen. Control and enjoy my eating. Kind of do it today, but I do it because I surrender to this program. I have a list of things that I've done. I horribly restricted, did slim fast. I chewed food and spit it out, over-exercised, overused laxatives. I'm a lifetime member of Weight Watchers. I could get to my goal weight, but my head never stopped. I was constantly obsessed, even though I appeared an average weight. South Beach, Dexatrim, I took prescription medication, phentermine, hypnosis. And once I was diagnosed with diabetes, I thought, oh, okay, this will be good. I can shoot myself up with my diabetes medicine and not gain weight. And it made me really sick. My sugars were out of control. I've eaten out of trash cans, not just my trash can, but the trash cans on the side of the house, in a business suit, just hanging over the trash can, just, digging in there, trying to get the stuff that was stuck to the bottom of it. In between, I have this. So I graduated from law school. I looked like this, probably weighed like 110 pounds. I don't know if you could see very well. Took the bar exam, flipped out after that because I was, forget what I did during the bar exam. I binged my way through the bar exam for 3 days. But anyway, I felt a total lack of control after, as I was waiting for my results for 5 months, that I have this picture. It's on my phone. I hope you can see it. One of my heavier pictures. Hold on. Not even the face shape. No, hold on. No. Anyway, my face gets really big, and you can just see it in my eyes. I'm just not a nice person. That's what it is. I have a lot of anxiety that I take medication for, but no amount of medication or therapy or anything helped my compulsive eating. It could have been that I'll tell you this. So when I'll tell you how I got here. It was in 2007, I went to my therapist, who I had seen for years. And I said to him for the first time, I said, I think I have a problem with food. And he's like, oh, what do you do with food? And I explained what I did with food. And he told me that he was in OA, and he thought that I should start with something else called CEA How. And I spent a year of thinking about that. And finally, when I surrendered to start that program, it truly, it changed, I was able to surrender. I worked steps 1, 2, and 3, and I was surrendered that I am entirely powerless over food. And I worked the steps in that program several times, tried to live in 10, 11, and 12, would have 3 years, would have 1 year, would have 6 months, would have 3 years. Thank you, Taisia. And that went on for about a decade. And what happened in that program for me, it worked until it didn't work. And that's because I believe my disease is progressive and it still works for some people very, very well. For me, I was going out to eat at least once a day to get foods that we don't eat in this program, but I could eat in that program, the grains, and they didn't need to be weighed and measured at a restaurant. And I would use people and I would say, oh, come, you want to go out to breakfast? Do you want to go out to lunch? Do you want to go out to dinner? And I would take people out with me and I didn't care about them. I cared about just getting my fix. And when the food thoughts came back with the vengeance, I knew, I just intuitively knew I needed to do something different. And thank God I didn't pick up the sugar and the flour and the alcohol, because those are the 3 things you can't do in that program. And so that's been almost 8 years, but I needed to make a change. And there was someone who was in CEA How with me who had come to GreySheet, and she just had this serenity. I mean, when it came to her, just this brightness in her eyes. We were out somewhere and she was weighing fruit on a scale. And what are you doing? And she said, oh, I weigh and measure my 3 meals a day now, without exception. And it's, well, and so I asked her to take me to a meeting and she took me to the Grove in Los Angeles. That was July 1st, 2017. And I was very honest from the beginning that I'm going to try this thing for 90 days. I can do anything for 90 days. Don't invest too much time in me because I can go back. I still kept my day counter from my other program on my phone. You know, I don't need, I'm just going to try it, but I'm a diabetic, so I'm terminally unique. I need to eat 6 times a day because I have a medical abstinence in CA How, and I can eat 6 times a day. And they said, oh, you can eat 6 times a day. You just can't do it on GreySheet, but you can eat 6 times a day. So, so guess what? I didn't need to eat 6 times a day. I started this program. I ate my 3 weighed and measured meals that didn't have the triggering substances in it that my body couldn't stand. And I can go 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours in between meals. Sometimes I mentioned last week that I had dinner at 4 o'clock and ate breakfast at 6 a.m. the next morning, 14 hours. I was fine. So how do I do it? Well, I'll tell you this, at 90 days, I was back at the Grove. It was a Saturday again in Los Angeles. And I said, there's no place I would rather be than my ass in this chair. And what I had committed to doing was to being a newcomer from the very beginning, as if I knew nothing about food, nothing about programs or weight, and also to be 100% honest with my sponsor. And I started out as like a specker and flucker, she'll tell you. I mean, I was just like, tiniest thing, I would just throw it out, start over, throw it out, start over, very anxious, pots and pans everywhere, the whole thing. And now I'm a 100% honest. Like if there's a spec that's like truly, I don't know if it's mine, I just make a phone call. And that phone call is really easy to make. Number one, because I have a loving sponsor, but if she's not available, then there are other people in program with whom I can speak. It's easy to make because I've worked that muscle, that abstinent muscle of picking up the phone and making a phone call if there's a food emergency or a food mistake. And one of the ways that I've done that is through service. And that's from the very beginning, I was told 90 meetings in 90 days, outreach call, every day, and 3 outreach calls a day. That was in the beginning, to be of service as early as I could. And all of that, I'm sponsored. worked the steps in this program through an AWOL, through a back to basics, through just one-on-one. And that's been really, it's been invaluable. But I think the thing that's helped me the most are the relationships with my fellows. It's coming to meetings. I'm doing much better now. I'll call myself out. I used to go on 2 to 3 Zoom meetings a day, and I don't do that anymore. Only because there's no judgment. I just don't feel like I need to do that anymore. Do I do at least one a day? Oh yeah, I do at least one a day. And that's helpful for me. And then I have form relationships with people, and it doesn't feel like I'm calling a stranger. Oh, is that time? Oh, okay, time during a food emergency. Anyway, so grateful, and I pass.